Good morning. I'm happy to see so many of you here. I'm especially happy to see the boys and girls, and you're thinking, oh no, there's no Sunday school, I have to stay for the sermon. Well, guess what? Let's pretend I'm talking mainly to you. So if you are under 18 years of age, would you put your hand up right now? Under 18? Young at heart in the front, okay. I just want to be sure I see where all of you are and that you can hear me. Okay, I want to take a quick poll. Sticks and stones may break my bones, but words can never harm me. Raise your hand if you think that's true. Sticks and stones can break my bones, but words can never harm me. Oh my gosh, I don't see a thing. I see one hand. I see two, I see three, I see four. Okay. Words. 5. Be with me. 6, I hear. Okay. I disagree. I'm going to tell you why. In today's reading, the second one that Matthew read was from the letter of James, and he said, the most important thing a believer in Jesus can do, if you go back and you can look at this and see if you agree with me, the 3rd chapter, the letter of James, the most important thing a friend of Jesus can do is get control of this. I would tell you to put your finger on your tongue, but your mom might say, ooh, please don't do that. Your speech, the things that we say. James said, you put a bit this big in the mouth of a horse and you can get it to go where you want. You take a rudder, how big, Mr. McLeod? This big, and put it on your sailboat, and it can steer a boat that's 28 feet long. The small thing guides the big thing. Your tongue, what you say, can affect everything in your whole life. So we have to be careful about what we say. James even said, and this was the 3rd thing, a tongue is like a flame of fire. Think about it. You get a book of matches and you start playing with them. What do your mom and dad say? They say, put that away, you're gonna burn the whole house down. How can such a little thing burn the whole house down? Well, it starts a fire. James said, if you can control what comes out of your mouth, you're perfect. He also said, nobody can. But we have to work on it. We have to work on it. So I'm going to suggest to you a tradition called 3 gates of speech. 3 gates that open and shut. 3 questions that we ask ourselves before we say something. Is it true? Is it kind? Is it necessary? Is it true? Is it kind? Is it necessary? Number 1, is it true? If you say something about yourself or about another person that is not true, what do we call that? A lie. It's even in the 10 Commandments, in fancier language, where it says, do not bear false witness against your neighbor. Why is that such a big deal? Because chances are, whatever we say, however fantastic it is, someone will believe us. And they might make a mistake. When I was 5 years old, a friend of mine told me that if you washed your hands without soap, your hands would catch on fire. And I believed her for several months. In our public life, in presidential campaigns, your parents and grown-ups are going to be talking about this a lot in the next few months. If somebody says something that's not true about a candidate, people start to repeat it even if they don't believe it. They will say it over and over and over again. Now, what does that do? Because you've heard it, you think it might be true. And the next thing that happens is that poor candidate has to prove that it's not. Well, what have we done? We've taken the campaign and we're wasting the candidate's time while he's trying to prove what somebody said about his war record. It may not have been true ever, but because it's been said over and over and over again, people start to believe it. It's not a good thing. If it's not true, if you're not sure that it's true, if you couldn't answer a question about it, don't say it. Is it true? Is it kind? Is it necessary? Is it kind? Okay, now some people say, if you can't say anything nice, don't say anything at all. Actually, that's not what I mean by is it kind. There are some things we have to say that are unpleasant or awkward to hear, but we have to say them anyway, to be honest or to be helpful. When my father first met my mother, they were at a funeral, and they had never spoken to one another before, but he noticed that her slip was showing. She was wearing black, and the slip was white. So he pulled her between two cars and said, "Sister, come here. Your slip is showing." She fell in love with him. That wasn't nice, but it was kind. He saved her embarrassment by taking the risk of telling her something that was true. Sometimes we have to say difficult things to one another to help one another out. So just because I say I'm only going to say what's kind doesn't mean I'm only going to say things that you will agree with. But there's a big difference between saying, "I disagree," or "I don't think that's right," and saying, "You know, you're an idiot. That is so stupid." You don't have to say, "You're an idiot." Jesus said, in fact, don't even say that in your heart. Don't even hold it in your heart. If you think your brother's a fool, don't even say it in your heart. Don't say it at all, because it won't help and it's not kind. Now, when we have to say something that's hard or difficult, or we think the other person doesn't particularly want to hear, the important thing is our tone and the reason we're saying it. Are we saying it to be kind? Or are we saying it so they feel a little worse in 5 minutes than they did 5 minutes ago? And are we saying it at the right time? You know, if your mom's rushing out the door and you're all late and you hate that dress, don't say it then. Say it later. Say it when she's changed into her blue jeans. "Mom, you know, I never really did like that dress. I'll say it now before you put it on again." Or if you're at work or you're on a team at school and you need to tell somebody they're not really pulling their weight, don't tell them the day they got really bad news. You know, if he's sitting next to you in chemistry and you know he flunked the midterm exam, this is not the day to tell him that you're moving him down to second string on the team. Pick the right time, especially if what you have to say is difficult. And if it's not difficult, if it's just pure and kind, you might want to say it, because you can encourage people and help them get through if you say the thing that's kind. The third, is it true? Is it kind? Is it necessary? Some things are just better left unsaid. "Mom, I really hate that dress." Actually, maybe you don't need to say it at all, right? It's just going to stir up a conversation that can't go anywhere. Some things shouldn't be said because they're private. If your best friend tells you something and tells you, "Please don't tell anybody," don't tell anybody. There was a famous woman in Boston Isabel Stewart Gardner used to say, and she said it in French, the secret of two is a secret of God. A secret of three is a secret of all. Once that third person knows, you've lost control. Telephone, telegraph, telegossip. Out of control. Now, but what's different between something that needs to be kept private and a secret that you really shouldn't keep? Sometimes we don't really know the difference. We're living at a time when everybody wants to know everything about everybody. We don't need to know, but some things are exceptions. If your best friend has asked you to lie and say that she's spending the night at your house, when in fact she's headed into the city on the MTA with some friends, that is not a secret you are obliged to keep. Especially not if you think she's going to be doing something dangerous. But if it's private, I'm having such a rough time in math, I really don't think Mrs. Jones likes me. I'm worried about my mom and dad. That's private. And when the person tells you that, it's an honor that they trust you not to say it again, but to remember that they told you, and the way they act the rest of the day may have something to do with what they just told you. Remember what they've said, but keep it private. We don't need to know everything. Now, speaking of knowing everything about everybody, the three gates of speech that I've just given you have been in world religious traditions for centuries. Is it true? Is it kind? Is it necessary? In these days of internet, text message, Twitter, Facebook, Snapchat, do I need to keep going? I'm going to add a fourth rule. Would you be happy having it repeated if you say it? You and I know it just takes a keystroke, a slip of the finger, to send a message to hundreds of people you never meant to see it. If you send an email to someone that makes that person sad or angry, or that they think is especially funny or untrue, how many seconds does it take them to send it to everybody else with your name on it? A wise man said to my son, don't put anything in email that you wouldn't be happy seeing on the front page of the newspaper. And you pick which newspaper. I'm looking at 4-inch headlines, right? If you don't want it repeated, don't say it. Unless you are in a trustworthy, face-to-face environment with a person that you really do trust. Is it true? Is it kind? Is it necessary? Do you want it repeated? Those four gates of what we say, what we write, what we post can help us to control our actions in the world and the way that people respond to us. They're not easy, these gates. Sometimes I worry that if everything I say is kind, I won't be funny anymore. Take the risk, make the joke at your own expense, and not at the expense of another. If we all lived this way all year, people would come to trust us more. They would know that we were capable of being faithful and loyal friends. They would confide in us when they needed our help. And they would trust us only to say to them the things that are true and that need to be said. I think it's good advice. I'm going to try. Is it true? Is it kind? Is it necessary? Am I all right with being quoted? Give it a try. Amen. Good morning and welcome to Christ Church.